Okay, good morning. This is the CyberSecurity Sensei Saturday morning webinars. It's available to anyone. We help people, regardless of experience or age, to learn how to get into the cybersecurity career field. And everybody's welcome to join us. We have a lot of fun here on Saturday mornings. We're also on Facebook, YouTube, and we do have an email list as well. So feel free to contact us at any time. So good morning, everybody. I say everybody, so far there's only a couple of you here. How has your cybersecurity week been? Has anything gone on with you that you want to share with the team? Anybody?
My week has been fairly quiet, but I did continue to apply for cybersecurity positions. So that's kind of been my week this week.
Okay. Positions with industry or federal government or what?
I think it's government contract. I don't know if it's pronounced CACI, C-A-C-I.
Yep. Having worked with them for many, many years, I can tell you that people who are in the company call it CACI.
Oh, okay.
People who are not in the company call it CACI.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been in meetings where, I'm saying, okay, so CACI says this, and the guy's like, yes, CACI responds with, I'm like, okay. I think they have this decision within their management, don't call us CACI, call us CACI. Okay. But yeah, CACI is the way I've heard it pronounced for dozens of years.
Okay.
Good company, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for what they did over in Department of Defense when I was there. So yeah, good company. Okay. Nothing else? Any studies, correspondence with family or friends, or telling people to go out and patch their phones or anything like that?
No, but I am continuing my Network Plus studies, but yeah.
Very good. Network Plus, I have never known anyone to say Network Plus was not valuable.
Okay.
I think Network Plus sort of answers the mail and connects the dots for so many different IT career fields right now. Our organization, for example, if we're talking Network Plus, our organization is working to implement IPv6 throughout the organization. So, all of the things you learned about IPv4 are going out the door. They're becoming obsolete. But if you are smart enough to be able to help an organization retool their TCP/IP from IPv4 to IPv6, that's a skill that people would appreciate. So yeah, good stuff. Chris, how about your week?
My week was interesting. As you heard last week, I got endorsed for the CISSP. I'm now starting my plan to make sure I make the 120 continuing education credits needed to upkeep my certification. And I started to look into planning on how to make that 120. And it's a great 5-year plan going on I'm starting to create. I'm looking at AI, I'm looking at cloud, and I'm looking at leadership topics, because 10 of those CPEs each year has to be in a group B, and that group B has to be leadership or volunteer work. And ISC Square has a really great website that tells you what they actually look for. Group A is the more cybersecurity technical, what's in the domains of CISSP. Kenya, I may send you a link, or I put the link in the chat right now, right after I'm done talking. ISC Square is hosting a career fair on June 20th. If you want to have a chat with them and want to join their organization, there might be some companies you may want to talk to see what they're looking for, and that'll help you with a cybersecurity career from there. Just opportunity to look at and and hopefully that'll be helpful for you. But joining that organization to me is a great networking opportunity. And first off, the entry-level test for ISC Squared, it's free to take, and it's you get a nice little certification. But if you give them $50 for that year, you join a networking opportunity with different people, and it's great to join a local chapter as well to talk with other people around and get to know people in the industry, not just Scotty and I in the virtual world. So something if you want to take a look at. Also, there was a link I read in an article, because one of the things I saw was in the Insights article, they give you a list of articles to read, and then every 2 months they give you a quiz for 2 continuing education credits. One of the organizations they mentioned was Women in Cybersecurity. I think you probably already know it. If you don't, I'll give you that link, and boom, that's another networking opportunity for you. But networking is also going to be a great key for you to help for cybersecurity as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, Chris and I both did not follow the traditional route of submit resumes, have somebody speak to you that doesn't know you, and you go through the interview process and that sort of thing. We made our connections based on who we knew, and that person sort of referred us or had something to do with the conversations or whatever. It wasn't, I guess, the cold call where you're going to an organization you know nothing about. Neither Chris nor I got into the career field in that manner. It was people we knew, and that facilitated our movement. And, hey, you might want to, or whatever. So yes, networking is very valuable. I cannot stress it enough, because if you think about it, it is itself, it's a skill as well. So you've got your hard skills, your actual math or app development or cybersecurity. Then you've got your soft skills, which are communication. But then if you're talking about networking, those are your relationship skills. So they all play a part, and they all wrap together to make you into what somebody would consider to be a valuable candidate. So yes, networking is important, in my opinion. I've never found networking to be a detriment. All the time I spend networking has been worth it. Okay, make sense? Okay, Ron. Ron, I see you just connected in. How has your week been? Anything go on that you want to share?
Nothing too exciting, just kind of plugging away with Security Plus studying.
Mm-hmm. Are you studying your 601 or 701?
The older one, the 601.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've got till the end of the month or so?
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. Shoot.
Yeah.
I better get
I think it's July 31st. I think it's
July 31st? Okay, so it's 2 months. So, yep, it's time to buckle down and get it done, Ron. And the good news is, once you get your Security Plus, nobody's going to ask, oh, was that 601? Was that 501? Was that 701? They're going to say Security Plus, and that's it. For example, and I like to talk about this, my Security Plus is 301. So, that's pretty ancient, and it's not that valuable these days. I can't put it down on my resume as being something that I would use because it is so old, but that was back in the day before CompTIA had continuing professional education, and they literally at that time said, if you get your certification, you're certified for life. And I'm like, okay. But it's not something I can use professionally. it is something that I can say, I have my Security Plus, and that's it. You know, that and $1.50 will get me a cup of coffee. So, yeah, work on your 601, slam your 601, get it behind you, and then you're good. Okay, just my recommendation. I think you guys saw last week, I think it was last week, where I talked about zero trust and how in the 601, zero trust is one line. You've got to know about zero trust and what it means. In the 701, zero trust is 9 lines, and you have to know about the portions of zero trust, how they interact, what they're used for, you know, etc. So there is a much greater emphasis on zero trust in the 701 that you don't get tested on in the 601. So they are different, but whatever you're working on, press through with that. Don't change, you know, horses right now. Get your 601, and then you'll be good. That's my recommendation. Okay, anything else go on, Ron? Just studying.
Yep, just studying. Okay,
fair enough. So I didn't really have too much of an agenda for this morning. I am actually preparing for a presentation that my wife and I are giving in 3 hours to a local church. And I sort of wanted to share a little bit about that. But first things first, I'm going to go to, here we go. I'm going to share my screen and just sort of step through some of the things that, the conversations that occurred on our Facebook page this week. So I'm going to go back down to, let's see, 5 days ago, I mentioned that Kate and Twyla are doing tremendously on the incident response. And as a reminder, Ron, thank you for getting started. I noticed that you're working on yours. So, Ron, you still have the longest streak of anyone in the CyberSecurity-Sensei mentorship team of period of time that you have been doing incident response analyst. So that's something you can put on your resume. I am the longest streak. It's like 9 months or something. Every month you've had at least one report. So you be proud of that. But obviously you can work on as much as you like. But I did notice Kate, Twyla, and Ron, along with me, are the 3 that are doing the incident response team this month so far. It's available to anyone that wants to put experience on your resume. So just something to discuss. I did the Secure by Design was last week, and so the week before that was Zero Trust. That Secure by Design is, in case you haven't heard, there was a big deal recently when I think they noted that 60 companies had signed the Secure by Design pledge. It is a non-binding pledge for IT companies around the world, but basically what it says is those companies have committed to using security best practices as they work to develop code and applications and software and those sorts of things. So somebody mentioned, what's the big deal about this? I do listen every week. I listen to Cybersecurity Today, which is a podcast that originates out of Canada. But it's not real deep. It's designed for the public, but it is good to listen to. I like listening to it. Cybersecurity Today. It is available on Spotify. I listen to it on Amazon Music. So wherever you get it, it's on Apple Podcasts. Yep, IT World Canada. So you could actually listen to it there. Chris just put the link. You can listen to it there for free on their website. But they were talking about, this is the second week in a row they have discussed this Secure by Design pledge. And the host said, you know, what's the big deal? It's non-binding. So what does that gain anyone? And the guy who was responding pointed out, he said, you're going to get to a point where it's going to be a credibility expectation that you have signed this pledge and agreed to abide by best practices in your development work, or we're not going to associate with you, or we're not going to buy things from you, or we're not, you know, those sorts of things. If you haven't signed the pledge, they're going to basically turn it into a reason why we're not going to do business with you, which I think is pretty sound. There's nothing new in this Secure by Design pledge that is a big deal, but there are still coders out there, there are still companies out there that aren't doing it. For example, one of the biggest ones is you agree to turn on MFA in all of your code. Make sure that MFA is enabled as an authentication method. There you go. So that is the sort of thing that, you know, MFA has been talked about for decades, and people still aren't doing it. But we have reached a point where if you are not doing well, I'll give an example that is in my briefing that we're going to give this morning. There are cyber insurance underwriters that will not give you a quote for your company unless you have MFA enabled by default. You can't get cyber insurance without MFA being enabled. It's up to you. If you don't want to do it, fine. You know, we won't insure you. So it's pretty interesting stuff to pay attention to. So I talked about the NSO group. That was a curious one that the NSO group has been, or the people that are suing NSO group have cleared all the way up to the United States Supreme Court that they can continue with their lawsuit. And the lawsuit basically alleges that the code in the NSO group's applications, whatever that was, violate human rights. And so these companies, I think it was Meta is one of the main ones, but WhatsApp are suing the NSO group for writing code that does stuff. And the federal judge has stated that the NSO group must produce source code. And that is if you want to think about it, it's sort of like I know how to turn, remember the old alchemists, back in the Middle Ages and stuff, the alchemist was supposedly the person who could turn straw into gold, because of, doing some special, before chemistry arrived, the alchemists could turn straw into gold. And so, of course, that was a very closely guarded secret for them, supposedly. Well, what if somebody said, tell me how you do it? Well, no, that's my secret. That's my process. Obviously, alchemy is not a bona fide science, but if you think about it, that gets into intellectual property. That gets into your actual corporate secrets. And this judge has basically said that the NSO group must produce source code that demonstrates that they didn't violate human rights. That is scary. I mean, if you think about it, how far is that going to go? And oh, by the way, the NSO group aren't the ones that were using this code. It was the Israeli government that contracted NSO group to write this code. So it's one of those, I don't know if y'all are up on the Second Amendment discussion. There are governments that are agreeing that if someone uses a firearm to harm somebody or commit a crime, then they have basically opened the opportunity to sue the person who created the firearm, not the person who committed the act. It's very, very interesting because it basically says at what point are you no longer responsible for the things you do? And that's getting closer and closer and closer to you. It's like, well, I just clicked this button in this software. Well, it doesn't matter. You opened the floodgates on a dam and it flooded this town. You're responsible for the town's damages. What? You know, how far is this going to go? So just something to think about. And this morning, a little while ago, I posted about one of the exploits that the NSO group is known to have put together. It's worth reading or it's worth watching, but man, it's geeky. It is deep. You've got to, you know, have your coffee to watch it. But it basically says app development is very complex and needs to be monitored and managed, and you know, the people who are doing it are not without fault. So it's an interesting thing to be reading about if you want to take a look at it. If any of you are thinking about app development, my recommendation is in cybersecurity, number 1, Network Plus, and number 2, any code that you learn, Python or Rust or, you know, any of those app developer languages, PHP, Java, JavaScript, they all play a part in cybersecurity. So this was an interesting one, and it's related to code. Any conversations about that? Anybody want to give your thoughts on that? Okay. Fair enough. Again, it's really deep.
Hey, yeah. I had my hand raised, but I guess you didn't acknowledge. So kind of related, but away from app development, on the CISL side, I actually read an article about the responsibility part of it. The FCC created a rule that said if there was a breach in your company and you're a public traded company, you have, and I believe it's 48 hours to report that breach to the FCC. And yeah. One of the chats I listened to from a former federal CISO was that's going to put a lot of burden on CISOs and their teams to, first off, do the incident response to that, and second off, how much the company wants to disclose that it has happened. And what the SEC thought this was going to do was, hey, we don't want these companies hiding breaches anymore and sweeping it under the rug. We want to know if it happened, and what did you all do to mitigate, and what's going to be the effects in the end on the stock market.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing here. I need to dig for more about what that does. But now the burden is going to be on the CISO to say, to be the mediator between your board, which some of them don't have a seat on, and complying with the federal government's report saying that the breach did happen. And that's putting the CISOs in a bind right now. And it's quite similar to what you were talking about, the weapon designer being sued. Because if the breach happens and they don't report, that first off, they're non-compliant. Second off, their stockholders can technically sue.
Right. Yeah. It's getting very interesting. I'll just say that. Yes, I agree that it's going to be sticky for CISOs. Like probably 2 years ago, I did a little video on my observation between what I called the lag time, the life cycle of an actual the time frame, calendar time frame of a breach, and when it occurs, when it's detected, what the very first thing somebody does to address that. And oh, by the way, it's not report it, it's to classify it and see if you can contain it first. Then you try and find out the extent of whatever it occurred, and you're talking, this could be weeks now. Then, who was affected, and then how to notify them, so I found, and I saw numerous occasions where somebody was included in a data breach. My personal information was in a data breach, and they notify me 8 months later, oh, by the way, like, well, what good is that? And that's the challenge. So now the SEC is saying 2 days, you must notify us. That's crazy fast. Yeah. And that means that resources must be dedicated somehow or another to reporting. And oh, by the way, what if you're wrong? What if you're mistaken? Oh, well, we thought it was this, but it wasn't. So it's possible you could be over-reporting. And the big thing a lot of people don't think about in cybersecurity is the CISO is tied very tightly to the business. And so the CISO and what the CISO does can literally sink or swim the business, as an organization. So you could, if you report incorrectly, let's say you're, the CISO for Raytheon, and you report incorrectly, Raytheon could lose millions in stock. And yet the SEC is saying you must do this. Wow.
Microsoft is taking the lead on over-reporting. They had a breach recently, and they put in the SEC, hey, we saw something. We don't know what it is. We don't know how much it's going to affect the stock, but we want to make sure we follow our compliance with the SEC. And we'll report back in this time period. And SEC was thumbs up about that. So they say stay tuned on that one. But that's something to watch. That's something to watch for your future CISO in the making.
The trigger event. That's all right. The trigger event rather than the full classification of what occurred. Okay. That sounds a little bit simpler, a little bit easier to do.
Scotty, it's Microsoft. They're too big to fail.
Sure. Did somebody say something? Oh, okay. I have a Microsoft war story. I was with the President's Commission on Critical Infrastructure Protection a number of years ago. I won't state how far back, but a number of years ago. And I remember sitting in a meeting it's called a SCIF, but it's a classified conference room with Microsoft, and somebody was talking about, well, you need to make sure that Microsoft Windows doesn't do this. And the guy from Microsoft, who happened to have been the chief security officer at the time. So we're talking, one of the C-level guys at Microsoft came to talk to us about this, and they said, you've got to fix this. And Microsoft, I was in the meeting, the guy said, we'll take that under advisement. And one of the commissioners said, you've got to be joking me. We're sitting here representing the United States government. The military alone has 2 million licenses with you. We're saying you have to do this or we're going to consider going somewhere else. And the guy from Microsoft, he didn't break a sweat or anything. He said, we'll take that under advisement. It's like, holy smokes, 2 million licenses, and you're saying, we might do that. Yeah, you're right, Chris. Microsoft can't fail. They're too big to fail. So it was crazy. All right. So I just remembering that one. That was like somebody ate their Wheaties that morning. So I wanted to talk a little bit about getting out there, because we have the ability to make a difference in our neighborhoods. We have an ability in our church groups, in our social groups, going to a family reunion, whatever. The important thing is that people know that you're a cybersecurity professional. And you are, because you are trying to get employed in the cybersecurity realm, but you're learning about it, you're working on certification, you are participating in these mentorships. That makes you a cybersecurity professional. And Chris and I were talking about this before you guys came on this morning. That means that you are, how do I say this without trying to sound big-headed? You are probably smarter than 99% of the people in the room. And as such, I'll tell you how I feel when I go into a room or a group or an organization. I feel obligated to help them get smarter. I'm not doing it because I want to, share with them all of my smarts. I could care less, but I want them to have the opportunity to know that they can do certain things that would make things better for them. Okay, so it's not about ego. And in fact, I try really hard to keep my ego out of it, because all I want is for them to be safer. And if they listen, fine. If they don't listen, fine. I have attempted to help them get smarter. That's why you guys hear me. I do stuff at churches, the Kiwanis Club, retirement homes. I just did one at the recreation thing. 18 students sat through 4 weeks of training with me about malicious emails, about text messages, about multi-factor authentication, about reporting, what to do if you feel you've been compromised. All of that together, 4 hours worth of training, and these people paid to come see it. So make yourself available. You, as a cybersecurity mentee and an incident response analyst, and working here as part of CyberSecurity Sensei, that qualifies you. Now, there may be others that are smarter. Sure, fine. I'm not here, I'm not here to compare resumes with you. I'm here to help these other people get smarter. Okay, great. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that you're doing this. Do you want to do the next class? I don't have to be teaching them, but they need to be taught. So that's the way I do it. And I just wanted to share a little bit, just a little bit about what I'm doing this morning at the Green Valley United Methodist Church. They invited me to come and talk to them about cyber safety. And because I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, and this is a Christian church, I said, okay, that means I can quote scriptures to them for this. And oh, by the way, my wife and I are getting a free breakfast out of it. Cool. So I called it Wise as Serpents. And it's sort of like, okay, well, here's our credentials. This is who we are. And then I give scriptures. The world hates you. And be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Those are two scriptures quoted by Jesus that I am going to be sharing with them. And then I am going to be talking about, and this is just part of my 4-hour presentation that I gave. I'm going to talk about passwords and why they're bad, passphrases and why they're better, multi-factor authentication, and then the absolute greatest of all time, and that is passkeys. I'm going to talk a little bit about password managers, but not a lot. So as I do it, I say, passwords, they're not good. Why? Because you can't remember your own passwords. 22% of us reuse passwords. That's a fact. So, let's find something other than passwords to use. Well, instead, how about passphrases? And then I talk about what they are. They're longer, and that is the number one thing that makes them more secure. They're longer, they're lengthier, and I gave an example. Based on the website, How Secure Is My Password, you can go there and look up, put in any password, and it'll say, it looks like it would take a computer about this long to guess your password. And you notice the second one, it's lowercase letters and hyphens. But the fact that it's lengthy makes the difference. It's not even uppercase, lowercase, numerics, and all that. It's just lowercase letters and hyphens. So I gave some examples of, what is not that good and what is good. And oh, by the way, these are all easier to remember than the stuff on the left. Easier. That's what stops most people. They say, I'm having trouble remembering passwords now, and you're telling me to make it longer. So you have to sort of guide them into why longer is easier. Think of a passphrase instead of a password. So it could be like for, the bottom one there on the green, my pet burro named Ron. It could be anything. But that, because you have lengthened it out, makes it to where brute force password guessing is far less effective. So I gave some ideas for passphrases, and I reminded them, don't use spaces. Now, so far, none of this is rocket science. And this is all openly available on the internet. None of this is, proprietary to me. I'm just passing on what I read about and learned and crafted into a slideshow. Talked about password managers. And I said, this is what it is. And according to the National CyberSecurity Center in the UK, they said for Macs, you can use Keychain. For Google Chrome, you can use Google Password Manager. Done. I don't tell them how to do it. I say you can do it, and it is a good idea. According to, well, here's a New York Times article. You see, I'm not putting my reputation on the line and saying you'd be a fool not to do this, or whatever. I'm just saying New York Times, National Cyber Crime Center, etc. And they can do with it what they please. I'm giving them the information and letting them go. Okay, does that make sense? That was it. Now we're on to multi-factor authentication. We're getting stronger and stronger and stronger as we go. So we start with the stuff that they should abandon and moving toward passkeys. So multi-factor authentication is part of access control. And I give examples. If you have a house, you've got a lock on your door. That's access control. So I start with that, to bring them closer to what a password actually is designed to do. And then we talk about factors, what you know, what you have, what you are. There are other factors. There are other factors, but these are the three main ones. Okay? And then I give some examples of what they are. These are not my examples. Most common one, you log in and password, and your phone says, "Is that you?" Trying to log on. Yep, it's me. You're successful. Very simple, but many of these people don't know why they need to do it. And that's what this is designed to help them do. So I give a couple YouTube videos. I've shown them here. This one was from the movie Monsters versus Aliens, where the guy's trying to get into the command center, and he's got to, put his tongue on a, whatever, so it determined that it's him before the door will open. And then here's another one from The Incredibles. Lightweight stuff, where here's what Hollywood thinks about multi-factor authentication. And I show those too. If you want to take a look at them, Monsters versus Aliens War Room is the first one, and the other one is called Edna Mode and Guest. And they're both out there on YouTube. So I show that. But then I say, is it really such a big deal? Then I go to the federal government's executive order from 3 years ago telling federal agencies to implement multi-factor authentication to the maximum extent possible. 3 years ago. So yeah, is it a big deal? Yes, it is. How about Microsoft? Microsoft has 300 million fraudulent logon attempts every day. Just Microsoft. And they say more than 99.9% of compromised accounts don't have MFA enabled. If you want to be compromised, keep doing what you're doing. Otherwise, enact MFA. Make sense? So far, all I'm doing is I'm bringing this information to them. I'm not saying Scotty says this. I'm saying the industry has matured and you need to mature with them. And then the bit about cyber insurance, I told you, we spoke about that a couple minutes ago. Underwriters aren't issuing insurance. They're not even giving quotes unless a company has MFA enabled. So yeah, it's a big deal. And then we get to passkeys. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. So that's what I did, passkeys. So what are passkeys? Well, Microsoft says they're the future of authentication. Google says it's the simplest and most secure way to sign into your Google account. Apple says it's a replacement for passwords. Faster to sign in with, easier to use, and much more secure. So if you don't believe Microsoft, Google, and Apple, then you don't have to worry about passkeys. But if you believe them, passkeys are something you should do. Is there any downside? And I point this out. I say, any of you that are using a phone and you log into it by doing that, you're not going to do that anymore. You just swipe up and you're on your phone. That is not a method of authentication. You have said, oh, no, I'm holding on to my phone, so I don't need authentication. Nope. You've got to turn authentication on your phone, be that the PIN, be that the pattern. You've got the examples right here on the screen, be that facial recognition, fingerprint recognition. Any of those things will work, but you just can't do this anymore and use MFA. MFA requires that the device that you're using for your passkeys require the device you're using for your passkey is also has its own authentication enabled. Okay, so you've got to do that. Again, this is not Scotty telling you, this is you getting smarter. I don't care if it's me telling you. I really don't. I just want you to be smarter. So what do you do about passkeys? I give them a link in the QR code where I have linked to all of the manufacturers' websites where they say, here's how to turn passkeys on in Google. Here's how to turn passkeys on for your iPad. Here's how to turn passkeys on for your Microsoft operating systems, etc. I didn't teach them. I didn't spend the time to say, okay, well, you Android users, here's how to do it. You Apple users, just wait a minute. Okay, now you Apple users, here's how to do it. Android users, hold on with me. I don't do that. I show them how to find how to do it for their own specific need. Okay? And then I said, all right, I've given you all sorts of examples here. Which are best? And I say passkeys, two-factor authentication, long passphrases, and there is no option for. In other words, passwords are no more. Don't use passwords. Because there are at least 3 ways that are better. And I mean trillions of times better. And then I point out that they all work fine with a password manager. I'm done. And then I give them that QR code link that says, here's how to find out more information. And it goes to my Google Docs page, and I publish this for every cyber safety briefing that I do. And you're welcome to use it, or just copy it and move it over to yours. Customize it to make it look right for you. But that's all I do. I just show them how they can be smarter. And it's not a, let's see if I can, here it is, cyber safety resources. And this is what I aim them to. And it just talks about, you know, built-in or available safety features you may already have. Your phone may have this, but you haven't turned it on. Your operating system may have this, but you haven't turned it on. Here it is. And oh, by the way, it's not my website. There's the one from Apple. There's the one from Google. There's the one from Microsoft. There's the one from Android.com. You know, settings you should set immediately. How to enable multi-factor authentication for online systems. That walks through like a dozen different online systems, like your bank, and says how to do it. I didn't take the time to teach them, but I gave them enough resources to where they can learn themselves. All they have to do is follow the instructions from the manufacturers. And then this is the place where I told them, go look up Passkeys Yes. And I put a YouTube video right there that says, this is why Google says it's a good idea. And they can watch that. Okay? And how to enable it. Then I said, this is the cyber safety, how to recognize spam, phishing, other malicious emails or texts from each of the cellular companies. Verizon, how to do it on your Verizon phone. T-Mobile, AT&T, Boost, Consumer Cellular, Cox Mobile. I just went and grabbed them from their websites. And you guys are welcome to use all of this. You can either aim toward mine or copy it all and use it on your own. There is nothing in here that's original. I have aggregated all of this together, and then you put it into a method that the people will understand. That's all it takes. Make sense? Victim resources, other resources. Hey, look, a cybersecurity mentorship program. Sure, why not? I put it down at the bottom. And send us your spam for the incident response team. Okay? And then at the very bottom, rate us. How did we do? And I've gotten some very good reports when people click on the rating. How did we do? I'll tell you how you did. You know? Make sense? I mean, is that the sort of thing that you guys could do without too much difficulty? I'm trying to make this to where the people who view this aren't overwhelmed by the technology. And that's the difficult part. learning to speak technology in a non-technical fashion. What do you think?
I think the
Looks
presentation.
good, Scotty. That's great.
Yeah.
I agree that
so-
speaking technical to non-technical is a challenge, and
Yeah.
the only thing you can really do about it is practice. And
That's why we're here.
mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. So if any of you think you might be interested in doing this, either on the webinar this morning or listening to the recording, contact me and I will help you craft a method to do this. Start with people you know. Me, I'm out in the community now. I'm using Nextdoor and other methods, other groups that I'm a member of. And this one at the United Methodist Church this morning was based on a briefing that I gave at our HOA a month or two ago about cyber safety, and somebody was so impressed they went back to their church leadership and said, our people need to know this. This would be really helpful for them. So they said, okay, Scotty, free breakfast. You want to come talk to us? I'm like, absolutely, I'm there. See? And the next thing you know, you put that on your resume too. I brief local community groups and to make sure that they're safer and more secure. Why do you do that? Because I care. And that when people are asking you in your interview, why should we hire you? Don't start with, I like computers. Start with, I want to make this world a safer place. Your head's in the right place by doing that. Okay? Hope that makes sense, everybody. That's all I had for today. I will let you know how the briefing goes, but I'm sure they're not going to throw rotten tomatoes at me. So you all have a great Saturday, and we'll talk later, okay?
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.